Hello out there in track land, track and field, jumps in particular. It's another episode of Raise the Bar with your host, Troy Haynes. Um, this morning, we're in the summer of 2025, which puts us a short 3 years away from the Olympics. So keep running across young athletes, not old ex-athletes like me, but young athletes who are in their prime and honing their craft and working hard towards a dream. Sometimes that dream is just to get an education, and other times due to good skill levels and good talent, combination of both and hard work. Some athletes, are going to cream rise to the top, and they become, U.S. Olympic team hopefuls and maybe even, medalist hopefuls for, competing against athletes from around the world. So, um, along that line, this morning, I just happened to bump into the new, or say a shot put coach at Redondo High School here in Southern California, which is close by the beach. Beautiful campus. If you've ever get the chance, Redondo Union High School is as nice as some colleges that I've been to, and a lot nicer than some. So anyway, at this school, there's a young man named Kai who is helping out with the shot put this summer. And this is one of the largest people I've seen. And I've seen some pretty large people. You walk up and this guy's 6'4" 5", really broad shoulders. And but obviously still just a kid, And so I asked him, what he was doing and how practice was going. And I said, you were here a couple of years ago, right? Went to state and everything. Yeah. I said, where are you throwing now? And he says, I believe he said Penn. I think he's at Penn, um, and which is Ivy League, right? And so, but just watching him coach, listening to him teach as a very young, can't even be done with college yet, I'm sure. First couple of years, and I didn't think about coaching till I was out of UCLA, and it kind of just came upon me. It wasn't a goal. I didn't realize I would enjoy it so much, or I would have started earlier. But yeah. Anyway, so we're going to be talking with Kai Deines. I think it's Deines, Deines. We'll find out when he checks in here in a few minutes. But he's going to be our guest. Again, if you like the podcast, go ahead and hit subscribe there. The button on it's on posted always on YouTube first, and then eventually it gets put out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other platforms like that. We just finished up the state run, and I have a couple of podcasts that I call in production. We just had a great hour and a half with Lexi Keller the other day, who's in the top six in the U.S. in the heptathlon. Was a high school high jumper who has spread into the other events, and really fun to talk to. And she has continued to grow. She went to Colorado State, and now she's trying to get into that top tier of 25, and up, which would enable her to compete at the Olympics and whatever. But the competition, as everybody realizes, is stiff. There are a lot of really good athletes over here that are trying to become top quality, heptathletes and around the world. And so, Lexi's still fighting that battle, but last year she was 70th, and this year she's up inside the top 40. So things are going well for Lexi, and we're going to produce that one. And then we just had a very interesting chat with a parent of one of the kids at Redondo High School, Greg Kish, who works in the field of sports marketing and advertising and developing huge venues here in the U.S. He's worked with football for the most part, although not exclusively. And just recently, helped plan and develop SoFi Stadium and different places. So he's been involved in some, huge money ventures and, promotion and development of those things and, marketing and analysis and research. I'm sure all those different aspects and trying to create markets, trying to, capitalize on markets or, make those markets even bigger. So we have that one that's also in production. We did that with my mentor, Alan Hankel, and we just did that one the other day. So we're still editing that one. So we got a couple in the can, or not in the can yet, but producing them to put them in the can, which is my term for, what they call old movies. Those of you young kids out there, what does that mean? It doesn't mean throw in the trash can. It means you've produced them and put them in the when they used to have the films, they stick them in those little cans. And anyway, so that's that vernacular, which is shows how old I am. I'm using terms nobody knows. And there you have it. But just wanted to throw out some quick comments. This is seventh or eighth year I've done this business of coaching young athletes here in the Southland, and been very fortunate to have it stretch out. Since I started this business, I didn't know that I would go in these directions, but I've worked with young junior Olympians. I've worked with some Paralympians. I've had the opportunity to work with masters athletes. Like Brad Kearns and a few others. Brad's a top-ranked triathlete in his prime, is now spread out into track and field, plays speed golf, is quite the entrepreneur himself, and has written some best-selling books. And all right, well, I'm actually sitting in the green room myself, I guess, or waiting, and I see a young man step into the plate here. And there he is.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no, I'm stoked, man. I did a little bit of an intro while you weren't here. Kai, how do I say your last name? Daines? How do you say it?
It's Dynast like dynasty.
Okay, I like that. It's easy to remember. Okay, so Kai Deines, and you were formerly at Redondo High School, right? And
Yes, sir.
did you do shot and disc?
Yep. Yeah, Sean Disk.
Safe assumption, but not always true. I was telling you I did that interview with my old teammate John Frazier, and after being on the team with John for 3 years or more, I thought he was shot in disc like everybody else because I saw John Brenner, Brenner was shot disc, won Pac-10s and NC2As at like 71-11 and 210 or something like that, 212. I can't remember the disc. And then, um, you know, Jim Bluetrick, Jim Banich, Brian Bluetrick, sorry, Jim Banich,
Yeah.
all kinds of these, they always shot in disc. Well, John Frazier was shot in hammer. So that's
Right.
not always a safe assumption, right? I'm sure he had thrown the disc, but he didn't gravitate to it like he did the hammer. So, tell us a little bit of background, Kai. You did you play football as well as throw at Redondo?
Yeah. So I actually came into Redondo thinking I was going to become a baseball player. Didn't make the team, so switched over to basketball. Never heard of shot put or anything. And then when COVID hit and I couldn't uh, play basketball, we couldn't commune together. My dad recommended I start throwing, and he actually told me that he used to be a thrower in college, along with my uncle, and so he was able to teach me some of the basics.
Hmm.
And then that sophomore year, I threw 53-3 in shot and 173-9 in disc,
Wow.
and then I was able to connect with a coach, Nick Garcia, who is at Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame right now, and he was really able to elevate my game. And I was able to throw 198-11 in the discus and 63-5 in the shot before heading off to Penn, where I'm at now.
Awesome. So, how did that do? I was kind of apologetic to you the other day. As a high jump coach, I've always been kind of in the zone, meaning when I walk out to my end of the track, I'm doing high jump stuff. The only time I notice sprinters is when they run around the corner and yell at me because I'm in their way, or
Right.
somebody's like track, and I'm like, oh crap, and that's the same way during meets. And then, the shot is nowhere near the high jump area. So I did come by a couple of times this summer and see you in action, coaching. So it's like, oh, I think I remember them talking about a large young man who was doing really well. How did you do your last couple of years there at Redondo, going to state and whatnot?
Yeah. So I made the state meet in both the shot and disc every year between my sophomore and senior year.
Awesome.
Um, and then in disc, I had finishes of second place, third place, and fourth. And then in shot, my sophomore year, maybe I was like eighth or ninth, and then I finished um, sixth and then third my senior year.
That's a heck of a
So
career. That's
yeah,
amazing.
and especially the California state meet, you're at a lot of other
Yeah.
states, they have seven divisions. But people don't understand the California state meet. There's one state meet,
Yeah.
and we're the best track and field state in the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I was able to compete against some of the best in the country. Some of the kids were some of the best to ever do it. Like McKay Madsen, who's heading to BYU. He was a 69-11 and 211 double.
Wow.
But at the time, going into my senior year, I was the U.S. number 2 discus thrower for my class and the number 5 shot putter for my class.
Yeah. Well, I can see where, they would be fighting over your services. Now, how did you end up choosing Penn over all the other suitors for your talents?
Yeah, so actually, as a baby, I was dressed in Penn gear. My dad and uncle both went to Penn.
Okay.
So my whole life, that was the goal. But then once I started the recruiting process, I realized what all these other schools had to offer. So my final like 7 schools were UCLA, USC, Penn, Harvard, Yale, Duke, and Florida.
Okay.
Um, and then USC and UCLA, I really liked their coaches. It was a great program, but I realized I wanted to go to the East Coast and just try something different.
Right.
Because if I went to school in Southern California, I'd probably never leave. It's just such a
Right.
gorgeous place down here.
Yeah. True.
And then, so now I'm left with 3 Ivy League schools and Florida, which is, yeah, for some people who may not know, they're better than Alabama is at football for track, right? They
Right.
win a national championship every year.
Right.
They're incredible. So that was an opportunity to compete at the highest level for track and field.
Right.
And then they have the best facilities, everything you could ask for. Wonderful coach, wonderful team. And then between the 3 Ivy schools, what really pulled me to Penn was not only obviously the huge history with Penn track and field. They take it very, very, very seriously. Um, but it was the business school. So I'm going to Wharton studying finance, which was a huge pull there.
Hmm.
And how much the coaches were committed to me at the time. There was no questions asked. We want you. Uh, they were constantly calling me, asking me about my day, and I was like, "This is the place for me."
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. So how
yeah,
many years now have you been at Penn?
yeah, I'm a rising junior, so finish
Okay.
up freshman sophomore year. There's no red shirts or anything in the Ivy League,
Yeah.
so you get 4 years straight up of eligibility.
Four and
So,
done. Okay. And then
yeah,
now what impressed me, Kai, was walking by, and it's weird with coaching. Some coaches don't do a lot of talking, and then some coaches, styles are different, but you just get a sense of people that are enjoy it, first of all. I get, I got the fact you're back over the summer and you're giving back, to your local high school and whatever. But I'm like, I didn't start coaching until, I'd been out of UCLA one year. I remember helping out with the decathletes a little bit the year after I graduated off the team when I was still at school at UCLA, but I wasn't thinking of, coaching as anything other than, yeah, I'll help out a little bit and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't looking at it as a career at all. And, you don't. I didn't know if I would ever be good at it or enjoy it, or I really hadn't even considered it. And so when I walked by and I'm watching you a little bit, because I just have that habit, I was really fortunate when I was at UCLA we were talking about some of the people there, John Brenner, John Frazier, Brian Blutrick, some of these great throwers coached by, Art Venegas. And I didn't have a guru as far as it went for the high jump. We didn't have a high jump coach. Bob Larson was really open with me when I walked in. He said, I'm the high jump guy, but I'm a distance coach. I don't really know anything about the high jump. So you're going to be working with Dell Davis and Lee Balkin, these two great jumpers who were great jumpers, but not coaches. And so I kind of, as I was walking around, it wasn't like I was directionless. I was at a great university, we had an outstanding weight room, good weight room coaches, all that. So I learned a lot there, but I was always listening. I listened to Art. I listened to Anthony Curran, who's one of the best pole vault coaches in the world. Some of these people that I was listening to, I was always looking for almost anything that I could use, towards my own training, either, mental aspects or, different things. And so, you listen, you learn, you pick things up. And that was one thing that impressed me about you was it seemed to me right away I could sense, the passion and also the communication skills. So was coaching something that had been on your radar, something you'd ever thought about, or did it just spring upon you like it did me?
Yeah, so I've been blessed to be to interact with some of the best coaches in the world for track and field.
Hmm.
It's a super small community, and my high school coach, Nick Garcia, was really tapped in. So off the bat, I've had dinner with Art Venegas. I've had dinner with John Godina.
Yeah.
I've met, like Swedish national coach, and then through recruiting, I've been able to talk to coaches all across the country. And I still maintain relationships with many of them, including UCLA, Coach Sean Denard.
Hmm.
Um, and I talk to them every chance I get, just trying to absorb knowledge because I love the sport. I love how you can talk to these Olympians, the top of the line, and they're not pretentious. They're really
Yeah.
down to earth, good people. And yeah, throwing's been my life. Really, it's been my passion. So when I was at Redondo, there was only a throws coach there for 1 year, Willie Deckard, and then he passed away.
Mm.
Um, and so then it was kind of my job to coach the rest of the athletes. Matt Smalling was there, but he had to do sprints and was just kind of all over the place.
Right.
So
As
that's when
he
I
still
started
is.
to, yeah, he still is. He's doing a wonderful job.
Energy,
But that's when I
energy bunny,
started.
that guy, I tell you. Energizer bunny.
Oh, he's the perfect person for the job.
Yeah.
He's great. Um, but that's when I started to first coach and I realized how much I enjoyed it. And now that's kind of what I realized that's what I want to do um, at some point, probably not at the collegiate level, but at the high school level. So right now the plan is when I'm out of college, it's to work in the finance industry. And then at a certain point when I'm done, working in cubicles, uh, I want to coach high school throwing.
Yeah,
So
well, I'm sure anybody's gonna be, lucky to have you. What as you're looking, back on this both long and short career with mostly these high levels that you've hit. Um, well, let's go one step further before we do that. Let's say how has the first 2 years gone at Penn? Like how have you progressed in your craft, and how are you doing in the Ivy League and going to NC2As and all that? How's that part been?
yeah, so freshman year hit me like a rock. Um, I came in as one of the highest recruited throwing athletes, and I thought, okay, this is just going to continue. But when you go to the collegiate ranks, you go from a 1.6 kilo discus to a 2 kilo discus,
Yep.
and your shot put goes from 12 to 16 pounds. And
25% increase, right?
yeah, which
25%. Yeah.
is ridiculous. So I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for that transition. And whereas most other collegiate athletes would get a redshirt year to get used to that, I didn't have that
Right.
privilege. So I was thrown right into the fire. And between that, just getting adjusted to being a
Absolutely.
college student, right? It's not easy, and it's something people often gloss over, but that wasn't super easy for me. So my first year, I didn't do too hot. I threw a 16.24 in the shot put, so like 53 and change,
Hmm.
and 47.63 in the discus. So uh, maybe like 150 something feet.
Yeah.
And then my next year is when I made a much bigger jump just because I was more used to being in the program. I
Yeah.
had gotten a lot stronger. I came into college at like 260 pounds. Right now, I'm away just over 300 pounds. So that helps. People like to discount strength and size a lot. It's super
Yeah.
helpful with the big implements.
Right.
And so this year, I was able to throw 1757 with the shot put to score at Ivies, and then 53, 53 in the discus. I threw that at Penn Relays, but I got third at Ivy Champs.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to the regional meet NCAs for the discus, finished 40th, not how I wanted to finish, but it was still a really good experience.
Yeah.
And just building that strength, building those repetitions, technique, explosiveness to hopefully
Yeah.
come back next year.
Now, how tall are you, Kai?
I'm 6'4".
6'4". Man, I having seen you in person, I've seen a few 300 pounders in my time, and I wouldn't have guessed you at 300. But I mean, you're
Yeah,
huge, but it's really well proportioned. It's like
I appreciate that.
I
Yeah.
think I was telling you about the guy that I've met, Coach Carl over at Yorba Linda, the 6'10", 320-pound giant. I've never seen a larger person in my life. That guy. First time I saw him, I even made the joke at the banquet. I'm like, this guy should have been the mountain on Game of Thrones, right? Huge person. Yeah, you don't look like 300 pounds, but you're like I said, you don't have any skinny any parts of you that you're like, wait, you're out of proportion. Some guys are huge upper bodies, no legs, right? Um, so you're mentioning this, and to you young athletes, all you field event guys out there, first of all, I want to keep championing the field events and telling all you guys to stand up and represent and keep fighting because I don't know if you saw this, Kai, but Washington State University just dropped their whole, basically almost the whole program. I think it went from track and field and cross country to just cross country. There's like no field events, or maybe there's just running event. I didn't get the gist of it. I read
It's
the article,
it's
but
only like a few sprinters,
yeah.
but other than that, it's only cross country. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just bizarre, right? So they just gutted the whole program, and I'm worried because I think some schools are gonna be like, oh, all of our NIL money is now a lot of it's getting paid to the athletes. We still got to pay top level coaches, if we want to be competitive at the NC2A level, both in football and basketball, and some of the other major sports. Track and field, I'm not so, they're going to be thinking we're not so worried about that. And the state, what do you call it? The trade secret is that if you have a great football and basketball team, and there's lots of money coming in from the NC2A due to the tournament in basketball, or making a playoff run, or even it used to just be a bowl game. If you just went to a bowl game, it was like $1 million or more, to the school, right? Or maybe to the conference and then the school. But the money tended to flow downhill from these other sports, and it would spill over onto track and field, and you would be able to pay your coaches a little bit. Nobody was paying the athletes. I hear these guys saying about going pro and everything. I'm like, nobody's making any money in track and field unless you are at the top of your profession. You have to be top five, in the world, or even in US. And it's even worse for us in the field events, right? So it's like they don't even show us on TV. They're too busy showing the running races, like and then if you're fortunate, they flash by and go, "Hey, here's this young kid from Redondo in California. Here's Kai," and maybe you see one shot, where they refer to you as the new and up and coming thing, or whatever. I got to see two telecasts of Prime Ticket they did my senior year, where we went against Cal. Cal came down to UCLA, and then we went against USC in the Coliseum. You want to know how many high jumps I saw? None. Both meets. I won both meets and didn't see one jump. And I'm like, okay, I jumped 7 feet in the rain against Cal. Okay, it was wet. Coliseum against SC, I was on fire, jumped really well. Nothing. I saw every lap of the men's 10,000. Ooh, that was exciting. No offense to
Right.
my distance friends out there, but so you're fighting for the survival of track and field, and the throws and jumps and everything else, in particular the field events. Um, But the other thing you mentioned I want to talk about and get your perspective on is that transition year, your freshman year, the year you struggled. That I think has got to be the norm and not the exception. I mean, there are gonna be people that succeed their freshman year, but I had a real similar experience. So tell us what do you think about the whole freshman year? Why is it so difficult? Why is there that, possibility to just, shut down? And for some people, they never come back, that freshman year out of high school to college, and then all of a sudden they're just and out and done, right?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple of things. I'd say in college, it's a lifestyle, right? It can't be a hobby. This is a lifestyle, and for some people, if they're committing their whole life to it, and they're not seeing the immediate results, especially because in all likelihood they were at the top of the line in high school,
Right.
then they just shut down, right? So I think that's a huge part of it. And then I also think comparison is so terrible, especially with social media. You see the couple kids that make a really great transition, and you're beating yourself up over why you couldn't do that,
Right.
especially if you were better than them in high school. And you're thinking, why are they doing this and I'm not? And it could be a plethora of reasons, whether it's their coaching or they just maybe get a little lucky or whatever. But I experienced that and I shut down a little too, and I was getting really frustrated. But what you don't see is the other 95% of kids who aren't posting on their social media because it's a struggle for them, and it's not easy. And so I think that adjusting to the new lifestyle of college, and you're worried about making new friends and all this other stuff. Maybe partying, I think, is a huge thing that I've noticed. A lot of kids get so sucked up into partying that
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of lose sight of the goal of throwing or in track and field. So I think a lot of things contribute to that fall off. And we on our team, you see that, and you see the kids that push through it, and some of them are become the best. Like
Hmm.
Bella Whitaker, for example, she was a 400-meter runner on our team. She had a down first year, but she kept pushing through it. And her senior year, she was an Olympian for Team USA.
Yeah.
She has the American record for the indoor 400, fresh out of college. And to see people like that push through
Yeah.
really made me understand that's what it takes. It's a grind.
Yeah. Well, that's something that you really don't appreciate, again, as a high school kid coming into college, right? It's the difference between the experience and the non-experience and everything where in our society, gosh, here in the US, and I'm sure it's starting to creep around the world. I mean, we want things now. It's like, well, I've been working hard here for 3 months. I should see some changes by now. And it's like 3 months is nothing, right? So
Right.
you've got to learn, like you're saying, these long-term lessons about dedication and all that. The partying thing that you mentioned, oh my gosh, I knew, when you got to UCLA, I wasn't a stranger to having, some beverages in high school. I'm sure most people would admit that. I wasn't like this angel in high school, and got to college, and I mean, you can literally get derailed. I did not know many guys on in track and field at UCLA that were in houses that actually rushed fraternities. And I think the reasons for that were kind of many, but the two that I thought was number one, if you're an athlete, you're in the biggest fraternity on campus. You're you're immediately grandfathered in, and you know I'm sure you've had the experience at Penn, but at UCLA while I was there, I rubbed elbows with Reggie Miller. I rubbed elbows with, I never did actually bump into Troy Aikman, but they were there when I was there. I was rubbing elbows with John Brenner and these great other track and field athletes. But, my first year at UCLA, I was on the athletic floor in the dorms. And so as you're walking down the hallway, I mean, one of the first persons I met was a gal named Jenny Miller. Jenny, if you've ever listened to this, I thought she was like my older sister. She was a senior. She was doing a handstand up against the wall when I was walking down the dorm floor. And I look over at her. I'm like, what are you, a gymnast or something? She goes, no, I'm a platform diver. I'm like, oh, she was a senior. She taught me how to do handstands and how to hold perfect form and do that. Now, I never jumped off a platform, but for a 6'3" guy, I could do a pretty good handstand after doing that. And it was like you just meet all these athletes. You meet great coaches and athletes. And then, in 84, which was my sophomore year, the Olympics were in LA, and all these athletes from around the world were using UCLA as a training venue. So I started meeting athletes from other countries, and it's just unbelievable. So I never felt any driving need to be in a frat. It was like I was meeting all these great people, but there's that temptation, like you're saying, is there. It's not just a party, but and the fraternity is not just about drinking, unless you see the movie Animal House and you're pretty sure. But there's also people will tell you, oh, I've made these friends for life. We've connected again, as there's not just your chapter right at the school, but the fraternity around the nation. And then it's like a network. Everybody's talking about networking all this time, right? For business and everything else. So you've got that aspect. But I tell you what, I saw some athletes that were pretty good that did come in and join frats, and man, they just became party animals. And I think some of them probably turned into alcoholics because they were just gone. It was just like it was too much. You were just too much partying, like you said, and that temptation ruins you. But yeah, I think the long-term patience is something. Now, you said you went from 260 to 300. Tell the uninitiated, how that even happens. Like, how do you get from, a 6'4", 260-pound person to 300? There's got to be some things that happen. Now, I kind of have a good idea, but I'm sure there's some that may not have that experience. How did you transform and
Right.
put on that weight?
So the weight gain started before then. So my sophomore year, when I transitioned from basketball to track, I was the same height I am now, but I weighed just under 200 pounds.
Hmm.
And so I knew from the get go the discipline that it would take to gain the weight. So I was eating north of 8,000 calories a day. Um, and then I would always try to eat um, just over my body weight in protein.
Hmm.
And so now my
Grams.
goal is around
Yeah.
300 grams of protein a day. And it's a lot. It's not easy. I would often eat till I was sick, and I'd be
Yeah.
eating at all times throughout the day just to make sure I was gaining weight because naturally I was pretty skinny. I
Hmm.
mean, you could see my ribs, until I was 16.
Right.
So it was a constant grind. My lifting, I would change it up from ridiculously high intensity, RPE 10, and my muscles would just explode.
Hmm.
And then I would go on some bodybuilding programs where I'm doing sets of 20, and just really trying to mix it up, shock the body.
Hmm.
But really, what it comes down to is consistency of eating, consistency of lifting, and consistency of sleeping.
Right.
So that's a huge thing, recovery. Um, in high school, I went to bed at 8 o'clock every night. In college, it varied a little, but I'm still getting 9 to 10 hours a night,
Yeah.
which is huge. So
Yeah.
it's not easy, but yeah. So that's what it was. In college too, you have access to the dining halls, which makes it
Yeah.
a bit easier.
Yes.
'Cause you don't have
Yes.
to
And
worry
you don't
about
have to
the
pay
food.
for all that food.
Right, right. So I'd
Oh
spend
man.
hours in there just eating. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I walked by, and you learn a lot of things really quickly at UCLA. When I walked into the weight room, where from high school to college, I mean, there were some big guys on our team when I was in high school, but not like this. One of the first guys I ran into was a guy that was supposed to get drafted in the first round. I had no idea who he was, but I saw this huge guy, had to be 6'3", about 250. And he walked up to the dumbbell racks, right, and grabbed two 150-pound dumbbells and just picks him up, walks over, sits down on an incline bench, and just like starts like this. And I'm looking like my jaw is on the floor. I'm like, that's a 300-pound incline bench press with dumbbells, which is
right.
hard because you got the shifting balance. And they were like toothpicks. This guy's just like, no problem. So I
Right.
remember these incredibly large people. And then, my experience with Olympic lifting was minimal. I think we squatted a little and we did bench a little. I'm at Millikan High School in the early 80s, right? Our weight room was archaic. I remember we had one universal gym, literally one of those old universals where you have the sit down overhead push press, You go around, there's a sit up ramp you could hook your feet into to do incline, sit ups. And I remember that thing. And then one power rack, and my high school team was in 1980 when I was a sophomore. Milliken actually won CIF. So it wasn't like we were a bad program, but I'm look at that weight room. I'm like, how did we get anybody with any strength in here? One dip bar that I remember. A lot of us lifted at home. I do remember buying my own, weights and doing bench and everything at home. But yeah, that 300 pounds and eating all that food and the rest, that's something I think you probably benefited from the last 40 years of developments in those areas because sports money has just continued to boom, right? If you're an owner and you've got what did the Lakers sell for last week? $10 billion. If you have
Yeah.
$1 billion enterprise where you're paying your athletes, some of these athletes are making over $200-300 million, spread out over how many years or whatever. But number one, you're paying them that much money. You'd like to make the playoffs if you're competitive by nature. Now, some of these sports owners, the TV contracts will pay them if the team's crappy or not. But you go, well, we'd like to have this continue to grow our brand. So the next time we sell, we can make, 15 billion. But it's like if you're going to compete at the playoffs, right? Basketball, football, high school or college or pro, you've got to get your guys number one to be good and number two to make it through the season, right? Hello, I need to be healthy when we get to the big meets, right? So the stuff that you're preaching is kind of new in the last 10 years, championed by guys like Tom Brady and LeBron James that have these really long careers, right? Nobody's had a career like LeBron. He's going to be 40 this year for them, is already the all-time scoring leader and all those other things. But I know I've heard him talk about getting rest, sleeping on certain types of beds. I think I've heard rumors that he pours as much as $8 or $10 million a year into his recovery stuff, right? So it's huge. And tell everybody, I mean, I went by the training table when I was at UCLA with the football team, and I know that those guys routinely ate at least 5 plates of food. I think they were required to, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
and protein, everything. So, I mean, literally, how much time do you spend eating if you're going to eat 8,000 calories? Like literally, you're saying you're eating till you're so full you feel like you're going to puke, and then
Right.
when you're saying it's a lot to eat 300 grams of protein, how did you cover 300 grams of protein? Was it like 5 huge steaks or what does it take?
Yeah. So since then I've waned off a little bit off at 8,000, but when I was at my peak, it was just eating meat, rice, pasta, cheese. Like
Hmm.
that's kind of the bulk of it. I tried to get a little fruit in, not a lot of vegetables because there's no calories there,
Hmm.
and not a whole lot of protein. So steak, it was trying to eat about 2 pounds, maybe like 2.5 pounds of red meat a day,
Oh,
and then and
yeah.
then add on whatever chicken, whatever else I could get in.
Hmm.
Oh, which really isn't easy. And then I never actually took any supplements, never did powder. I do creatine, but that's it. So it was all
Hmm.
just eating food. And then um
The creatine holds water, right? Is that one of
yeah,
the things?
yeah,
Yeah. So that adds a little bit. Yeah.
that adds a little bit. And then in terms of time eating, like I'd say I was pushing like 5 meals a day and I don't know,
Yeah.
45 like half hour a pop, maybe a little longer than that.
Yeah.
Um, the goal is just to put it down as quickly as I can. And I have to watch myself now if I go out to eat with somebody or some friends because that plate's gone before they even get their food. Because like my whole
Right.
thing was I have to eat quick enough to where my body doesn't tell me I'm full.
Right. Right. Yeah.
As soon as you hit that wall, it gets pretty tough. So
It's like being in the
I had to put
military,
it down
right?
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Choke it down
yeah,
fast. Or an advantage, like were you in a big family? Because I know the friends that I had that have had 5 or 6 kid families, they learn how to eat like that, right? Because if you
yeah.
don't
So
eat like
actually,
that, you don't get food.
I only have one other sibling, a younger sister. She's going to Stanford to throw the hammer next year.
Oh, nice.
But my dad, uncle, grandfather, they all grew up on a farm, so they're built like farm boys. They're humongous.
Yeah.
and I learned from them how to put it down. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the real deal. I mean, and you got to do both. Like you said, the hard work and everything is one thing, and then, the other part literally is, the pounding. Like I
mhm.
I don't we'll ask your specs in a second. When I got to UCLA, I was what, 6'3", 180, walked in the door. By the time I was done with that freshman year, I had put on, I'm not even done with the year. I think it was heading around into the spring. I had put on 15 pounds, but it wasn't because I was eating a lot and lifting well. I mean, I did okay, but it wasn't, I remember I wasn't like keeping any track of any numbers. Again, the program there was very loosely organized, especially for high jumpers. There wasn't anybody designing our programs or anything like that. So when we went down to the weight room, you had a rudimentary sense. I'd been in gyms for a while, so I would do the 3 sets of 10, leg extensions, leg curls. They had all those, Cybex equipment was really nice, like nudged into some of the squats and everything, but I basically put on 15 pounds and I didn't get that much stronger. As I remember, I don't think I was squatting. I know I was probably a little bit over my own body weight, but not a lot, and bench press. I think I was stronger in bench in high school from playing football, but I benched maybe 220 or 240 or something. So
Pretty
that
legit.
freshman year, I was terrible. I jumped worse than I had as a junior in high school. So my transition year was like what you're talking about, where I was just like, okay, what is going on? I can't get off the ground. I could feel the distinct difference in lift. And so that second summer, man, I got in the weight room and I was like, all right, nobody was giving me the program of this is how to become a better jumper. But I'm like, they do have a great weight room here and I'm going to go for it. So when I started, squatting, my goal was to try to, I don't even remember how I got to the place, but I got my full squats up to 400. And then I got my bench press. I actually benched 300. And I had guys tell me, they're going, dude, are you going to become a decathlete? Right? Because
Yeah, that's
I was
ridiculous.
6'3",
Yeah.
195. I was jumping against guys. Dell Davis was 6'2", like a buck 60. Lee Balkin was 6'4", 160 pounds dripping wet. And they're jumping 7'3" and 7'6" and stuff like that too, and I'm like, okay, I'm built like a rock, but I'm like, I'm doubling down on that. But I remember, being able to bench that much and doing the sets. Now, if I do any kind of bench, man, my shoulders just don't like it. Like I can't even picture anywhere near that much weight. 200 feels like a lot of weight, now on my shoulders. What is that like for you with these maxes? First of all, just to throw down, what are the numbers on full squat and bench? Do you guys bench as much, or do you do different types of stuff for your upper body?
Yeah, so we do bench. The training program I'm on, it's not a lot of one rep stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, I haven't maxed in a long time. Um, and then our squats, we do squats banded. Um, so top banded. So at the top, it's the heaviest, and at the bottom, it takes off about 200 pounds.
Hmm.
But I was squatting this year. I hit 745 for six,
Hmm.
where the top is the full 745. The bottom, you're looking at like 545. Um, so that's a number I can throw out. Raw, my guess is I'm pushing six mid, six high.
Hmm.
Um, my bench press is my weakest lift. So right now, we're really trying to build my bench up. Right now, I'd say I'm 4 plates or just shy of 4 plates, about like 405.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, this summer is all about getting my upper body big. We don't deadlift at all. And then for Olympic lifts, I'm hand cleaning 315 for five.
Hmm.
And then I couldn't tell you my snatch off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's honestly, it's a lot of weight room, but it's a lot of plyos.
Hmm.
That's something people don't really think about the throws. They think, oh, you're just big, fat, and slow. But you look at a lot of these top guys, they have 40-inch verticals.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
they're jumping through the roof, they're sprinting really fast. And that's required to be a top level thrower too. So
I tell you what, that's I was telling you the other day that I had some stories about that, but the guys, John Brenner's brother, Hobie Brenner, played football. He was at SC. John went to
mhm.
UCLA. Hobie went to SC and got drafted by the Saints and played for 8 or 9 years in the pros. I'm pretty sure he's a well-known player. And I know John. I shouldn't say I know. I'm pretty sure he probably played as well. John Fraser. A lot of these guys played football, obviously. And you're like, oh well, um, like you said, you think of these guys as slow until you watch somebody who's over 300 pounds run down one of these quarterbacks, and they can run from here to there in a 4.5 40 speed, like explosively quick. One of my favorite stories about that was a javelin thrower when I was at UCLA named Mike Izzy. He was, 240, 250 in the jav. This was the old jav, but I forget how many times it's been remodeled since. But I remember the world record at the time was well over 300 feet. Somebody threw it like 330, and they said, we got to tone this thing down. Somebody's going to eat a javelin. But we were playing basketball down on the courts at Sproul, whatever one of the dorms was at UCLA, and we're just down there talking for a second, and a ball rolls up and hits him in the feet, and I'm looking at him, and he bends down and literally puts both hands on it and just jumps up and tomahawks it, right? And he's like 6'3", probably about 225, maybe 230, big cat,
Yeah.
and I'm just watching him. I go, he just tomahawked the ball. He didn't load. He didn't do any. I had no warning that he was going to dunk it. He looked like he was just picking it up, and he didn't reload or anything. He just like jumps up, boom. And I looked at him. I'm like, how do you do that? I'm like, I'm a high jumper. I can't do that. And he goes, dude, I'm squatting. Threw out some big numbers, squats, cleans. He goes, when you start, moving twice your own body weight, you're going to do some pretty amazing things. I was a kinesiology major and I'd started learning some things, but I'm like, okay, so if you're really, really strong, and I usually put the numbers at doubles. I go, if you can double your body weight, you're going to be a better athlete, just period. I said it's not even technique. I mean, you don't watch somebody that big start to run and go, oh my God, look at how perfect it's like, no, no, no. This is strictly power. It's like if you can squat twice your body weight, then when you push off one leg, that one leg can probably handle your whole body weight, which before maybe it was half. So when you push with that much force, you're going to start moving quickly in that direction. It's not like you're saying, and these guys jumping out of the gym, same rules. If you can squat double your weight, then when you push against the earth with that much force, you're going to jump up. You might not have the greatest quote unquote technique ever, but you're going to be explosively quick. And so, yeah, that kind of thing, all the hang clean numbers you're throwing out, I was all that stuff very familiar with. A quick question: the banded thing that you're talking about, I've seen some different things like that, but how does that work for the weight changing? I know that different angles for those of you again a little bit uninitiated, and if you came in the middle, this is the Raise the Bar podcast, and my guest is Kai Deines from like Dynasty, right? Deines, Kai Deines. I remember that mnemonic you gave me from Redondo High School, and now he's at Penn. And we're going over some things about power, but I do know that different joint angles are harder. Like the 90-degree knee bend is really difficult to get out of, and a lot of people will argue in the world of track and field that you're never really in that position unless certain things happen, right? For the high jumpers, if I've ever have a 90-degree knee bend on anything other than my running as I'm up and down, it's too deep. I'm never going to be able to get
Right.
out of there, right? So I know when you're saying that at the very top end, everybody wants to be able to do the explosive quarter squats and explosive jump squats, right? And that kind of thing, and maybe not get down that deep. So, but I'm curious, because I'm really not sure. How does that thing you're talking about, the banded ones, work where it starts at 700 and as you go down, it starts to lighten on you? How does that work?
Yeah. So this was kind of pioneered by um, Louis Simmons at Westside Barbell. So one of the leaders of American powerlifting, and then it started to pick up by throws coaches.
Mhm.
The one who's really developed the throws style program is Coach John Smith at Ole Miss. He has a national champion or multiple national champions every year.
Mhm.
He's incredible. Um, and so the reason we do like to do bands, top band and bottom band, um, you do it for different reasons. So at the top, you feel that the full crushing force. We do go all the way down to just to train the range of motion, build the
Hmm.
muscle. There's times for box squats or pin squats that we'll do as well. And then at the bottom, you're feeling light and you're feeling ready to explode, and then you just kind of hit that wall coming up.
Right.
But then when you have a shot put in your hand, you feel you're bracing for that kind of resistance, and then it's not there, then you just pop.
Right.
So that's kind of what I felt in throwing. It's super helpful. So we actually do all of our squats banded unless we're doing box squats. So it's I'm honestly not fully learned on a lot of the science behind it, but I've
Hmm.
seen a noticeable improvement in my throws and strength.
So now in banding, does that just mean basically that I was thinking of a particular thing where it was changing the weight for you, but do you literally just change the weight yourself and go through a certain range
Well,
and then,
so yeah, no. So you just have a rubber band, right,
hmm,
tied to the top that has 100 pounds of force on one side, 100
hmm.
pounds of force on the other. And so when
Oh,
you're at the top,
it
the
starts picking
band's
up.
not
Yeah.
stretching at all,
Okay.
right? But when you're at the bottom, the band's pulling up.
Pulling up, helping you. Right.
Yeah,
Right. So it's kind of like that. I've seen some of those too. I'm sure you have where they're doing the assisted jumps with the bands, right?
right.
So you're doing the
Yeah,
same thing, right? It's easier because you're getting help, right? It's like doing
right. Yeah.
push-ups on those pulleys where the half of your body weight is suspended or whatever. So okay,
Hmm.
my brain, I'm like, okay, thank you for explaining that because I'm
Yeah. Sorry, that's my bad. Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. I haven't seen it done, but now that you're describing it, I can see it and I can see the value behind it. Because it's basically kind of giving you the adaptation without you having to go through it yet, right? Which is the whole
Right.
getting the muscle really strong through the range of motion and then ceasing to train for a while and letting your body remodel. And then all of a sudden you can handle that range of motion, but you're not beating yourself up all the time. So that's the battle I don't think people understand either when you're like, what is the advantage of steroids? I'm like, well, steroids basically just help you recover faster. So it's like
Right.
a time condenser, right? So you can do more work and all that and you recover quicker. Now you're paying the piper in many other ways, which is why it's banned and rightly so. But some people are willing to trade 10, 15 years of their lives for, fame and glory and money and all that other stuff that it brings. And you're like, okay, and that it could bring, right?
Right.
But the other thing is the adaptation due to training when it's done correctly kind of does that same thing. Throughout the season, we got that tapering process, right? Where you put in your base work and you're kind of getting beat up. I remember, I'm sure you do too, that freshman year, those workouts were nothing like what you did in high school, right? And I would get
Right.
home and just like you said, sleeping 8 hours was not a problem because you're you're exhausted. You're like, boom, and your body the whole time. You can imagine like as soon as you fall asleep, your little muscles and the workers in there are like, okay, guys, we got a limited amount of time. We got a lot to do. Let's go. And they're just like, okay, who's got the protein? Bring it over here. Let's start rebuilding these muscles, to handle this. And, I think about it, not just the muscle, but then the wiring. You've got all this quick twitch and all this other stuff that has to be put in there. It's pretty amazing when you think about how your body remodels for all that stuff. Help us out here now as first of all, of your two events, which one is your favorite to do?
Yeah. So it's whatever I'm throwing further at the time. So yeah, like right now, I'd say it's discus, just because that's where I was able to make regionals in. But
Right.
at any given time, if I pop off and shot, then that'll be my new favorite event. And I really enjoy throwing both. In college, people tend to specialize, especially at the top level. But it's great for me because if one's not going well, I can
Yeah.
do well in the other, especially in a meet. You have two events,
Right.
one sucks, you can still do well in the other, and you have a great day.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I enjoy it. I love shot put, I love discus, and hopefully I'll be able to throw that both double the rest of my
Right.
career.
Now,
Yeah.
are you I'm curious about this too because coming through UCLA back when Art was coaching there. as I remember, I don't think anybody did the spin in the shot. I think everybody was
Right.
gliding back then.
Okay.
So are you a glider or are you a spinner when you're throwing the shot?
Yeah, so I'm a spinner. I learned the spin. That's the only technique I've ever known.
Hmm.
And now across the board, I think Godina may have been one of Art's first spinners.
Right.
Uh, but everybody spins. So at the
Yeah.
last Olympics, there were no gliders for men. The women are starting to approach that where there's not going to be very many gliders
Right.
at NCAs this year. So that's the top 24 throwers in the country for shot put. There were only two gliders, and you're seeing it kind of start to die out.
Yeah.
Now there's some people who it's the better technique for, especially if you're super tall, you're 6'8", you're 6'9". That ring's not the rings shot put ring's pretty small, and
Right.
it's pretty hard to spin well. But other than that, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, the glide just could dying out.
It's interesting. My coach and mentor, Alan Hankel, has worked with some of the top, athletes in the country and some really good multi-eventers. And he's we talk physics and stuff like that all the time. So he was telling me that, and I apologize because I always forget her name. I can picture her in my head. I'm watching, the American gal that's won the gold a couple times now in the disc. And I
Oh,
said,
Valerie Allman.
yeah. So
Yeah,
we're talking about Valerie and her technique. And like, first of all, when you see her, you don't think that she's a thrower because even though she's
yeah,
tall and she's long, she's really not huge like some of these other gals from other countries
right.
and even our own country. So you look at her and you think, oh, she's kind of a heptathlete, but man, is she fast through the ring, right? She's whipping through there. And what he explained to me, and I want to get your insights on this, is that everything that I've learned about leverage in sprinting and jumping and everything else, teaches me that there are times that you want the lever as long as it can be, and there are other times when you want it short. For instance, if I'm running, it's very hard to swing my legs in a stiff forward and back motion and have power. You can power bound like that. Everybody does the running C drill like that. You can do certain things, but you do not see Olympic sprinters running down in the 100 kicking their legs forward and back with long levers because it's just, for whatever reason, you just can't do it fast enough. So if you want to start getting your turnover going, you got to bend your knee, shorten your leg, and get it to cycle through there quicker, right? And everybody's seen those examples. If I throw something for a distance, I'm going to stretch my arm back first where it's long. And then a javelin, you keep it long and pull the whole thing, right? But then in football or baseball, you bend at the elbow and all of a sudden it starts coming through quicker, right? So there's long levers, there's short levers, there's where do I use them? I'll tell my guys, I go, hey, I want you to reach back your arms behind you for more power and swing them up. And sometimes the first time they do it, they keep them straight the whole time. I'm like, okay, you reach back for more power. I go, now they're too long for too long. So I need you to shorten them a little as you swing them. But then as you get up to the top here, I want you to go ahead and extend them back. So here I've got this weird thing. There's like long to short to long again, blah, blah, blah. Now he was telling me about Valerie. He goes, the reason she gets through the ring so quick is she's not keeping that arm completely straight. He goes, when she starts to spin, she's shortening that arm and getting through the ring faster. And I said, now does she re-extend it at the end, right? To get all that long leverage thing? He goes, no, she just keeps, if anything, it might get a tad even shorter as she releases. And I'm like, okay, I got to watch it, on film. But I'm like, I've seen some changes in the rotational sports like that. Like for instance, in figure skating, there was a Russian gal a couple of years ago before, and the Russians are always routinely getting popped for drugs. Like they suspend the whole Olympic team, right? And literally all the sports. It wasn't just the sprinters or whatever. Like, okay, the whole of Russia doesn't get to come because we know you're taking drugs. But she was, doing the jumps, and for the longest time, the you know, the ice skaters would just kind of fling their arms across their bodies because they were trying to spin faster. And this one gal just came up and goes, boom. And she put her arms straight up. And then she would get all this air and she would just kind of lazily spin around. And she was throwing triples and quads like they were no big deal. And I'm like, well, now somebody's finally taught this ice skaters how to jump. It's not about this rotational spinning so fast. It's just, get your arms up at takeoff. Well, this Valerie, it seems to me, if this is the case, this really fast rotation thing. I'm like, well, it makes sense because if you start long, like a scratch spin in skating, right? You see that they start and their arms are out, and then they pull their arms and they start going, and they just speed up like crazy. It's everybody's seeing a blur, and then all of a sudden they put their arms out, da and they're done with the routine. I'm like, okay, so it's kind of like a scratch spin in ice skating. And then she's really hauling when she gets through, and so it's rotational speed as opposed to strength or whatever. So what do you think about that? Does that ring a bell? Is there anybody teaching that or coaching that?
Yeah, so to be honest, that's the first I've heard of it. Conventional wisdom, and when you look at a lot of top throwers, their lower body, your right leg is super long out of the back during the spin,
Hmm.
because you want to create separation in the discus. You
Right,
want the discus
right.
to be as far back as possible, to have that chain reaction at the finish to throw far. And then after you're long out of the back with your right leg, then you pull it in and you're really quick throughout the rest of the rotation
Hmm.
because you want your lower body to get ahead of your upper body, if that makes any
Right, right.
sense.
Absolutely. It's like
Um,
winding up the clock on the one end, and yeah, I got you.
right. So you land and you're so far back. Also, you do want your arms to be as long as possible because that radius allows you to throw further.
Right,
Right.
right.
You're
It's a
not
longer
going to
lever for
throw
sure.
more if you're alligator armed.
Right.
And so I honestly haven't heard about her shortening her arms. Maybe she does a little, but certainly at the finish, she is pretty extended and she finishes
Yeah.
pretty far out. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah,
It'd be
discus, you
interesting
really,
to look at. Yeah,
it's
I
your
see
lower
the
body that
trade-off.
tightens up.
Yeah. It's what do you call it? I guess like it's a trade-off. It's like I tell
Right.
people all the time, you're training your sprinters or your jumpers that want to improve their speed. I'm like, look, you're standing here at zero. Your speed is your stride length times your stride rate. Everybody understands that. And so as you start, you can't start with too long of a stride length because it'll take you forever to get going. So you want to be a little bit choppier at the beginning. So there's the short levers, right? Punch, 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 punch. You don't even start to cycle your feet because it takes too long to get them back on the ground. So you almost just push, 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 push like this, right, behind you. And you can almost drag your foot along the ground so you can put it on the ground again. But eventually, once you stand up and you're moving, you're going to start cycling your feet. So there's a trade-off between stride rate and stride length. But basically, when you start at zero, they're both going to pick up. But then after a certain time, you might be like, okay, I've hit my maximum stride length here, and I can't get any better than what this is. But maybe I can continue to hit my stride rate, right? So I look at that rotational thing the same way, going, okay, there's got to be a combination of lever length. But I've demonstrated levers before. If I pick up one of those high jump bars and I swing it around, I go, watch this, I swing it like this. It takes a long time to go around. If I hold it in the middle and swing it around, it goes quicker. So I'm like, okay, so there's rotational energy that are tied to that lever, right? And if it's really long, you can say, okay, I'm multiplying by this huge lever arm, which is what you're talking about, keeping that long lever behind you and getting your legs loaded up so you got that torque loaded up to here to get that spin and release. And so you go, oh yeah, lever arm is crucial. But at the same time, if that long lever isn't moving, right, it's like, okay, here it comes. It's like, okay. And it comes through. It's like, okay, well, the most important thing there is the lever, right? So I see the interplay between the two. And how do I get that moving faster? And like, squatting twice your body weight and everything. Yeah, you start that process spinning through the ring with your legs, right? You're not standing on your hands. You gotta do it with your legs. So I find that interesting. I was just curious to hear what your take was on it. So we're getting close to our hour. Let's walk us through what is this next year like? What is your what is the goals? It sounds like you had your best year as a sophomore just last year. You finished in third in the Ivy in both shot and disc, if I was listening correctly.
Third in the Ivy disc. I finished sixth in the shot. Yeah.
6 and 3. So this
Yeah.
next year, what are the goals, both Ivy and NC2A?
Yeah. Okay. So in the Ivies, there's the meet record holders in both the discus and the shot put are still there. Casey Helm, Princeton, and Obiora Kiki from Columbia.
Hmm.
So these are some big dogs, and yet the goal is to win.
Right.
If I go into any season short of that goal, um, then I don't even know why I'm showing up, to be
Right.
honest.
Right.
So I'm doing everything I can to win Ivies, and then also I'm the big overarching goal is to become an All American.
Right. Top eight.
So
Is it top eight? Top eight?
or top eight's first team All American. But if you make the national meet, you're an All American.
Right.
It's just whether or not you're a first team, second team, or honorable mention.
Okay.
So this junior year, I'm really trying. That's the big goal to make the national meet. And so, what is that going to take? Well, so this past year I threw 57, like five and shot,
Hmm.
57-7 shot, and it's going to take about 60, 61
Yeah.
maybe on the day at regionals. So that's definitely a gap I believe I can close. I was able to make that jump this
Yeah.
past year, and I've been seeing a lot of good things in training. And then in discus, it's going to take probably another 15 feet in discus, 10 feet in
Hmm.
discus. But again, it's all who shows up on the day at regionals.
Right.
I do think the California system really benefits the California athletes when they get to college because they're used to this. You have to go through
Yeah.
CIF prelims,
Oh, yeah.
finals, the Masters meet, state
Long
prelims before
stretch.
you get to the state final.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, 5 straight weeks. Whereas
I know.
a lot of other sports, it's just a hard mark, and then
Yeah.
you make the state meet.
It is
So
crazy.
yeah, so you see a lot of success with the California athletes in the NCAA ranks, and hopefully I'll be able to follow suit there. Have the benefit of two. We have two coaches, Isaiah Simmons, who holds a lot of the school records at Miami, and Montel Johnson, who was at Monmouth and then Ole Miss. But it's great to have those two coaches to run the lifting and the throwing side. It's just constant communication this offseason, whether it's the
Yeah.
stretching, lifting, and hopefully hit some big goals next year. So
Awesome. Well, hey,
yeah,
Kai, this this is awesome, dude. We got to do this again. Thank you for spending your morning and telling us about what's going on there. I love you sound really focused and very mature. You got this 4-year outlook. Everything's boom boom boom. You go into the School of Business. You've got that lined up for you, competing at a high level. With the like you said, the prep of California behind you, helping you there. You've got your business and then your coaching goals. Everything's lining up. So I hope and wish the best for you. I want you to check in from time to time, and I wouldn't be adverse to seeing. Do you do a I know for me, video is huge. Do you do a lot of work with video? Are there certain ways that you look at things where you can really see improvements in technique and what you need to be fixing and that kind of stuff?
yeah, video is huge for throwing. Whether it's side by side comparison with Ryan Krauser or an
Right.
Olympian, um, or just to see yourself throw. I would say now people get a little um, overzealous with video, and as a result, they want to watch every jump or every
Right.
throw
Right.
on video, and they're not looking for feeling as much
Right.
because I think that's something people don't understand. You may look the same as this other person, but you need to understand what they're trying to feel in that position,
Yeah.
or else it doesn't mean a whole lot. So I think there's a good balance between that, and the video is so crazy now, and I think it'll
Yeah.
shift back a little, but yeah, super
You-
important.
Just out of curiosity's sake, like for me, I have a couple of really prime angles that I like. There's some videos that people will send me and like, what do you see? And I'm like, I can't see anything. The video you're sending me is worthless because it's at this angle that I really can't tell what you're doing. It's either from 2 miles away because of the beauty of the USATF and everybody else saying your coaches and your athletes can't be anywhere near you, or even on the
Yeah,
field with you, like all the other sports. Like, of course, in football, you come off the sideline, your coaches are there. Basketball, the coaches are there and they're coaching every little aspect of everything, right? From where you line up to who you're covering to whatever. Whereas in track and field, it's like, oh, well, you're trained, you should know everything you need to know. And it's like,
Yeah,
Hey,
it's super
these are
weird.
like the really big meets, right? And it would be nice to have some feedback. What's the best angle for you? I'm thinking, I'm looking at you going, well, if he's coming at me, maybe I can see some things, maybe I can see length of levers and, from straight on. But like with me, coming straight at me is terrible for the high jump. I need a certain shot, coming down the bar. What's your favorite view? What's the one that shows you the most stuff?
Yeah, actually, similar to you, coming straight at you is not very ideal. The consistent one, honestly, is right behind the ring.
Hmm.
Um, See the back of the throw, because that's often the coach's angle, and yeah, just that's I'd say the most beneficial. And then you can also do from the side angle.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so just
Straight and
90
flat
degrees shifted.
compared to the front. Yeah, that I was
Yeah,
thinking that from maybe just to see the release point or yeah,
right.
whatever.
It allows you to see different things, but
Uh-huh.
yeah. So yeah, those two angles are super helpful.
Be great to
And
up on top.
it's
I would,
yeah.
right?
Well, like Ryan Krauser, he does some drone shots.
Uh-huh.
But generally too, what's super helpful about that is it's a consistent angle that people film at. So if you want to compare yourself to how other people are throwing, I
Right.
mean, you're looking at the same frame side by side. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, again, Kai, thank you for your time. I'm hoping, are you gonna, how long is the summer? Because we've got a 2 or 3 week break here, right? In the program. And then we're some kind of dead period that I never understand. But then we're supposed to be back out there. Are you coming back out for a couple weeks and then heading home, or was that a couple weeks it?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm checking in today. There's
Mhm.
some I think there's some kids who want to come out, but yeah, I don't leave till like second week of August.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
so I'll be around. I'll be at Redondo whether I'm throwing or just helping out coaching. So
When does
yeah.
school start back up at Penn?
School starts the first week of September.
Okay,
But yeah, I'm getting back there for like a finance internship thing.
right.
So
Okay,
a couple early.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks again for your time, buddy, and we'll bump into you again out there before the summer's over for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Really appreciate it, coach.
All right, thanks, Kai. We'll talk
All
to you
right.
later.
Appreciate it.
You
Take care.
bet. Bye. And so we just spent an hour of our morning with Kai Deines, like or Kai Deines, Deines. I got to remember Dynasty. It's spelled Deines, I think. It's either EI or IE. But just a really focused young man. Like I said, he really comes across, just his passion. You can tell he's dedicated. He works hard, and he's studying his craft, and he knows his stuff. So we're going to look for great things for him coming up. A little bit of a divergence for us here on Raise the Bar, but we talk to athletes of all kinds. I have had some of my UCLA teammates on here that aren't always jumpers. The great Kevin Young was an intermediate hurdler who broke the world record and won Olympic gold. One of my former teammates, Roy Carls, was both a decathlete and a 400-meter runner. So we have ventured a little bit out, from just the high jump, long jump, triple jump, and pole vault. Haven't, I don't think I've had a javelin thrower. Maybe we'll have to spread out a little bit. But anyway, until next time, that's going to wrap it up here on Raise the Bar. We will be talking again soon. We still have yet to do our state finals wrap up. Alan and I are going to do that together. Alan Hankel, again, follow us here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and you can always check out what is current on my Instagram at Sky High and Fly Jump Lab. I'm the Sky High and Fly guy, Troy Haynes, signing off. Until next time.